Relations between Russia and Belarus have always been close. Why do Belarusians now fear a complete takeover of Belarus by Russia? Following the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991, Belarus emerged as an independent nation. Yet it continued to uphold strong economic and political connections with Russia. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia sought geopolitical success to compensate for its failed empire. This led to the creation of the CIS and CSTO projects, allowing Russia to maintain influence as a regional power with its satellite states. Belarus holds significant geopolitical importance. Its alienation could trigger a political crisis, especially with revanchist groups in Russia opposing the liberal reforms of the 1990s. Lukashenko's ascent to power in Belarus marked a significant shift, ensuring the signing of the Union Treaty and maintaining the country's alignment within Russia's sphere of influence. The groundwork for the Union State was established in the early 1990s during discussions on energy and CIS matters, where the post-communist elites hesitated to extricate the country from Russia's economic, especially energy dominance. Lukashenko capitalized on this situation by holding two referendums, one of which focused on strengthening economic ties with Russia, a policy that received widespread support from the Belarusian populace. On December 8, 1999, Russian President Boris Yeltsin and Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko signed a treaty to create a union state. This treaty aimed at integrating Belarus and Russia, unifying their legislations, customs systems, and energy resources. For the next 19 years, the document was largely forgotten, despite numerous declarations of friendship from Lukashenko, Putin, and other leaders. Relations between Moscow and Minsk have seen periods of tension, including energy and dairy disputes. In 2018, then Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev reminded his Belarusian partners of the Union State's existence and proposed two paths for integration: maintain the status quo or implement the agreements, which entail a unified tax, price, and tariff policy. Belarusian politicians received this proposal with little enthusiasm, but by 2019, work on roadmaps for integration programs had resumed. In December 2019, regular protests erupted in Minsk against the strengthening of the Union State. And in early 2020, Lukashenko declared that Russia viewed integration as the absorption of Belarus. The controversial 2020 presidential election in Belarus sparked nationwide protests against Lukashenko. During this crisis, Russia provided political and economic support to Lukashenko, which further increased his dependence on Moscow. Negotiations on integration resumed in 2021. Quickly, the document Strategic Goals of the Russian Federation in the Belarusian Direction was developed, aiming for full integration of Belarus into Russia by 2030. In November 2021, during the Supreme State Council meeting of the Union State, Lukashenko and Putin signed a decree outlining the main directions for implementing the Treaty on the Union State from 2021 to 2023, which approved 28 integration programs. These programs laid the groundwork for deeper Russian-Belarusian integration, including the unification of payment systems, the creation of joint oil and electricity markets, and the advancement of nuclear energy development. Consequently, Belarus remains heavily reliant on Russia for its energy supplies, loans, and economic assistance, which exacerbates its economic subservience to Moscow. This financial backing is a crucial instrument for Russia to maintain political influence. Additionally, Russia and Belarus frequently engage in joint military exercises. This bolsters their military cooperation and consolidates the Russian presence in Belarus. The establishment of Russian military bases in Belarus further enhances Russia's military control over the country and integrates Belarus into the Russian defense network. What are Russia's strategic goals? First and foremost, geopolitical stability. Russia views Belarus as a strategically important buffer country vis-à-vis NATO. Control over Belarus will strengthen Russia's geopolitical position in Eastern Europe and protect its security interests. Additionally, restoring the sphere of influence. The full integration of Belarus aligns with Russia's broader goal of reasserting its influence in the former Soviet republics. This is consistent with Russia's long-term strategy of expanding its sphere of influence. Capture scenarios can be considered in various forms. The most probable approach is through gradual via economic dependence, political control, and military presence. This can be legitimized through referendums or political agreements to minimize international backlash. Russia might employ hybrid tactics such as disinformation, cyber attacks, and backing pro-Russian groups in Belarus. These strategies can establish control without formal annexation. Although less likely, formal annexation remains a possibility, particularly if Russia perceives an opportunity to do so with minimal international consequences. Regarding the international reaction, it is anticipated that the EU and the US will respond with heightened sanctions and diplomatic pressure, aiming to inflict economic harm on both Belarus and Russia. Interestingly, recent sanctions have unexpectedly bolstered Russia's economy, contrary to Western predictions, but they have also deepened the international isolation of both nations. Meanwhile, neighboring countries like Poland and the Baltic states are likely to ramp up their military presence and seek additional NATO support to counteract Russian expansion. Russia's ambitions in Belarus hinge on economic dependence, political control, and military presence. These tactics aim to gradually integrate Belarus into the Russian Federation. While full annexation seems improbable at the moment, Russia is poised to continue increasing its influence and control over Belarus to bolster its own geopolitical stability. Meanwhile, the West is determined to counteract this influence. The geopolitical situation is very tense. It remains to be seen what will happen next.